Three-quarters of parents say they spend too little time with their kids these days. Many families are looking for solutions. And so today's guest, Dr. Christopher Good, says he has a great solution. Dr. Good is a spine surgeon. He is president and CEO of Virginia Spine Institute in Reston, Virginia, and he is a father of three. And a year ago, he and his wife set a goal for their family, and that was to spend more time together and to focus on individual and collective goals. And they call their effort G5. That's G5 for the five members of the Good family. And today he's here to talk about it in the hopes of inspiring your family to live a life of wellness and healthy habits. And I am already inspired. You and I have talked about this a little bit, and I'm excited to dig in a little bit more with you, Dr. Good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. I'm excited to talk about this. As you know, this has been a big push for us. And as I just talked to parents and other people out there, we're all trying to figure out how to do the best thing for our kids and for our families. And so I think it's really awesome to just get ideas and really talk to other cool people and to build something special for your family.
Yeah, that's what it's all about is sharing best practices. So, I know a year ago your family created G5, and I mentioned, the five members of the Good family, but it's also stands for the Good Family Initiative for Vision and Excellence. That's the acronym for five. And you even created a logo, and you're wearing a hat today with the logo, which is really cool. So wasn't just like a fun, whimsical idea. This was a serious plan. Tell me where this idea came from and why you and your kids and your wife wanted to do this.
Yeah, I think that if you look at both my family and my wife, like my wife was first generation. Her parents came over from Serbia and had to start, from nothing. And my mom, as many people know, my dad fell out of a chairlift when I was a little kid, and he had a bad spine injury. And my mom was a single mom with two little kids, and so I think it's safe to say we both really were motivated to try and do well and get to a higher level in our future, right? And so we've luckily done very well. And now you start to say, well, gosh, you talk to people and you say, well, how do you motivate your kids to have that same hunger or fear or drive or whatever it is, right? And you hear about this in first generation, second generation immigrant families all the time, right? Like there's this tremendous drive, but how do you sustain that, right? And the good news is, like, I don't think our kids have the same level of concerns that we did, right? The
Mhm.
stuff that our kids get to see and do is very, very different. I'm happy and proud to be able to provide that. But then how do you stay motivated? How do you work hard? And so, as my wife and I were both kind of thinking about this, we hadn't actually talked to each other about it, but we were both kind of thinking about this individually. And I remember when I was in med school and I had done well, but I remember just thinking, man, some of these people are just so smart and like so far ahead of me. And I wanted to go to orthopedics and be a spine surgeon. It's the most competitive, area of medicine. And so I got to the point where, like, I was getting up at 3:45 in the morning and I was studying the upcoming lessons for the day, so that by the time I went to the class, I'd already studied it before the class. So I picked up twice as much.
Oh,
And then
wow.
at the end of the day, I'd restudy it and I'd exercise. And then, I was pretty hardcore. Um,
When
that,
did you sleep?
yeah, well, not much, but you're young, right? Like that's when you're supposed to work hard. And that's, when I made a decision that if I wanted to really achieve something special, that was what I personally needed to do. And, that ultimately led to, working hard and taking advantage of opportunities, led to me getting into what I would consider, the top orthopedic and spine fellowship, programs, in the world, and skyrocketed a lot of things. And my wife, similarly, she ultimately, after college, she became a physician assistant, and she went to Cornell and had her training there. And so we both had these paths of like hard work and dedication. And we said, well, how do we like teach that to our kids, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so we have three kids. I have twins that are 10 years old, Xander and Zoe, and then I have today, actually a 14-year-old. Happy birthday, Zach.
Happy birthday. So you really wanted to create a plan that would get them to be motivated and to really think about to be forward thinking. And I love that there are so many meetings to G5. I mentioned the acronym there. It's also the five members of the good family, as I mentioned before, but it's also because there are five pillars to this too. So let's talk about the pillars and break this down. Number one is the family goal. Number two is the personal growth goal. Let's talk about those two briefly.
Yeah, so the whole thing about this is learning how to set big goals and then understand what you do in the short run each day to chip away at achieving great things, right? And so we tried to get each kid to have something for the family, for themselves that was a personal growth. We kind of already gave them their educational goals. They didn't get a lot of choice there. And then a health and a fitness goal, and then something in terms of sports and extracurriculars. And I think sports and those things are great for kids. I also think if you're trying to get into a great college these days, like kids have to have stuff. And
Mhm.
so, um, we sat down and part of what we did from talking for some other people who have amazing families is we really sat and we started talking about how to set these goals. So if a goal, your health and fitness goal might be win the pull up competition at the school. It might be do XYZ. It might be make some sports team that you want to try out for, or learn to play an instrument. Like, and it's more like, okay, that you can't do overnight, but if that's your goal in the long run, what do you do today and in a month to achieve these big goals?
And then the education work goal too. So do you review these like each week, and how does that work? How does it work?
Yeah, so we get up early in the morning, and that's a challenge, right? Because I already got up pretty early in the morning, but we get up in the morning and we dedicate time to this. So we get up, we try and set the vibe right. We all get together, we sit at the kitchen table, and we actually do a little journaling. And our journaling is mainly goal driven. Like, what are your goals? What are your thoughts? But it's amazing when you start journaling; it goes all over the place, and that's a
Hmm.
good thing. But we try and do that for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes. We try and do something that would fall into the range of mindfulness, learning about breathing exercises and meditation and stuff. Honestly, that doesn't come naturally to me at all, but really starting to kind of branch into that and just broaden our horizons. And as part of that, we talk about what did you journal today? What are our goals? And we do have kind of crazy whiteboards upstairs where we've written some of our goals, because I think setting a goal and sharing it with somebody else increases the chances that you're actually going to do it and follow up on it. And so we've worked over time to like really understand, like, for each of us what that would look like.
And so you said that you have one child who's turning 14 today. Again, happy birthday. And then the twins are how old?
10.
10. Okay. So I've got to ask you. So I have a 17, 16, and 13-year olds. If I introduce this to them, and they're probably at the ages where it would be tough to introduce this to them, but I don't, I mean, getting the buy-in from kids, that's hard. How do they really feel about this? I mean, honestly.
Well, thankfully, we do have special kids, right? And they look at what we've achieved, and I think they look at that and they understand
Hmm.
that they want that. And so when we started talking, it's all about setting the vibe, right? You got to, hey, yeah, like, we're interested in this. I mean, if you said it, like, who wants to, do you want to, get to great things in life? Do you want a nice house? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to, whatever? And the answer is always yes, right? You're asking yes questions to start. Um,
Right.
and they really started to understand, okay, this is how mommy and daddy got here. And so we get them to buy in. But you really do have to set the vibe, especially when it comes to getting up early in the morning. So for me, like, I have a different way I wake up each of the three kids based on what's worked in terms of what my younger son Xander. I just walk in, I'm like, let's get after it. If you get up right now, you're beating your big brother, and he's up, right? He's like,
Mm.
I'm already winning for the day. Obviously the 14-year-old, a little harder to drag out of bed, but he's a very motivated kid. And so it's all about getting him up and kind of getting him in the right way. Like, we believe that by doing this, it's going to lead to great things for us.
Hmm.
Because I'm a little bit of a hardcore driven person, like, I do have a tendency to get a little too pushy. And what I found is if I push too hard on that and then you get the pushback, it can definitely drag it down, and then you're the bummer, right? You're cracking the whip, and if you start down that path, people don't want to do it, and you got to take a break, and you got to find
Yeah.
a break.
Well, and I'm sure, you find that they will push back a little bit here and there because they're kids. Do they have a break on the weekend?
Um, yeah, and so we actually probably were doing too good a job, and so we've recalibrated what we're doing a little bit on the summer, because the reality is dad's still getting up at 5, and like it's not fair to get them up at 5:30 if they don't have something till later in
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
But what you want is something that's sustainable, right? And so in the long run, understanding goals change, and you need to evolve is really important. And I think we've also learned some valuable lessons, like uh, if you set lots of really, really lofty goals, like you also get to learn lessons about failure, like a lot of them,
That's
And
true.
so,
That's so
you know,
true.
and trying to manage, like, okay, now I'm actually not worried about my kids' motivation. Now I'm trying to say, okay, like, let's not work too hard. Let's make sure our lives are fun. Let's not burn out on things, right? And so as a parent, and as a coach or a team member or a business leader or whatever, you're trying to like figure out how to like look at different people's needs and know what they need at a given time.
Right, because there's some kids who are more and adults who are more focused on perfection, and if you can't reach that perfection, you like that messes with your mind. So yeah, each child and each adult has to be has a different perspective on these things, and you have to parent differently for those kids. So there is an interesting statistic that says that the average person gives up a positive lifestyle habit after 7 weeks. And I understand you guys have made this 7 months with the G5 plan, and you're still going strong. What has come from doing this? And how far do you see this going? What are some of the results that you've seen as from G5 from this plan?
Well, most importantly, I hope it's that the kids actually figure out what they want and achieve it.
Hmm.
Like obviously everybody had to get straight A's, and everybody got straight A's. So that's a great like educational goal check, right? We set the boys set goals of winning their school grade pull up challenge. And like my older boy, like crushed the school record by like 15 pull-ups and stopped just because he felt like he was making people feel bad. Like it was unbelievable. And
Yeah.
my younger son, who's smaller and hasn't hit his growth spurt yet, for him, to be getting fit and getting control of his body and getting that confidence. And he also, I think he rolled out 16 pull-ups, and that's pretty awesome for a little kid.
Hmm.
Um, for me, I've had a goal to try and get kind of in the best shape of my adult life. We've kind of talked about this, but I've dropped probably over 30 pounds, and I've really started doing a lot with health and wellness and my own fitness, which I think as you look from going from your 40s into your 50s one day and beyond, and really wanting to stay a highly functional person, you really have to dedicate that, not only physically, mental clarity. And so, I think we've really seen it across the board. We're up and we're all up in the gym, like doing a little exercise class together. In my basement, I've got a bounce back for lacrosse and baseball, and the kids are down there for 15 minutes in the morning, and we're all training together. And yeah, they get better at their sport for that, hopefully. But more importantly, I think that there's a really cool like bonding experience and a lesson that has gone along with that.
I love that, and I'll bet that's one of the really intangible benefits of this is the connection that you have. Talk about that, how do your kids feel about that bonding that you've had, that connectedness? Was that one of the things that you really weren't expecting?
Yeah, and I would say the very best days we've had were days when the whole plan fell apart. But like one day, we're like talking about what are goals? Like what are the kind of goals? And Xander, who's the 10-year-old, is like not doing drugs a goal, Dad? And it's like, well, yeah, actually, like let's talk about that, right? And we have like probably a 40-minute discussion. Everything else went out that day. We had like a 40-minute discussion about fentanyl crisis and what's going on out there and kids and all
Hmm.
the different stuff that comes on, like the stuff that parents are supposed to make sure they talk to with their kids before somebody else, right? And like there's nothing else that would have had me up at like 6:15 in the morning talking to my kids about not doing drugs, and they brought it up, right? And that's really special, like
Yeah.
bonding time when you get that right. And like, another day where like maybe we get up and the routine totally falls apart because something bad happened. If somebody were having something stressful at school or get bullied or whatever may happen in the course of your life, if you're getting up and you're talking and it's always like that, then you're just ready to, and you have that time built in and you have those habits of, hey, we talk about this stuff, right? And
Mhm.
it's been really cool. And I didn't understand that much of it, but probably, that kind of maybe is the most important thing about the relationship.
That's wonderful. And so, speaking of goals, were you setting a goal for a certain time length that you would be doing this? Is it 1 year, or are you expecting to go longer? What are you thinking right now?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm trying to find something that's sustainable for all of us, but
Right.
it's going to change. Right now I got, multiple kids, travel sports, academics, SSATs, and so it has to evolve over time. But really what I want the kids to understand is like you can have these really high goals you set for yourself. How do you chip them away every day? Do little things every day to achieve big things over time, and to start to learn how to build those wins. But there's a lot to be learned by the struggle, the
Yes,
the
right.
toil, the fit. I tried this. I didn't get it. Well, I don't like that. I'm going to try harder. And, like that is something I think that I definitely, got to do as I was coming along. And I think that builds resilience in people, right? And a lot of us, different books, but, the things that you struggle the most with in your life are probably the things that define you the most. And
Hmm.
so really kind of, without going too overboard, really helping them to understand that, there's all the sayings, right? Pressure makes diamonds, right? And that's kind of this thing is how do you overcome, don't give up, stick with it, building mentally resilient kids these days is something that I definitely am hoping to achieve.
Any failures that, so I do want to ask you about best practices, like for other parents who may be interested in this and want to start their own type of 5 pillar plan in their family. Any failures that you would want to pass along, and then how would you recommend another family get started on something like this?
So you got to make it fun, and you got to make it something they can believe in. And where I did not do a good enough job in that is where we've come the closest to failure or we've had our biggest struggles, right? Because I'm like, get up, we can't be 2 minutes late, because if we're 2 minutes late, we're not going to get to this part and to that part. And you just got to find the right balance, because if it's some, as soon as it's something that you dread, you don't want to do it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that would be my thing. But I think, we really spent a lot of, the kids were involved in this. We spent a lot of time. What's important? I wanted a cool name, and I've got buddies, like so many people not in our family contributed. My buddy Jack was the one who finally hit him. We should call it G5, and multiple people here at my office at VSI helped with this logo and putting it together and trying to build like a pride. You're trying to build a team, right? And think almost like a sports team, the things that go into like getting people to love it and be motivated. And so I think that's where getting them to contribute and have ownership and come up with symbolism that they like and they think is cool is really really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. So to take ownership for a family, it's those pillars again. I want to review those because that was that's so interesting to me. The pillars are setting family goals, a personal growth goal, education work goal, health and fitness goal, sport or extracurricular goal. I think that's so important for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, and we know that most people don't set goals, sadly. People who set goals are much more likely to achieve them. People who set a goal and actually talk to others about their goal are far more likely to achieve them, right? And
Hmm.
so just getting in the habit of that, and it's been really amazing for us coming together. We're definitely closer and stronger than we were a year ago. And if that keeps building every single year, then we'll have achieved something special.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, congratulations and thank you for the tips. I appreciate it because maybe I'll start something in my family too.
I'd just like to thank the dozens of parents and patients and business leaders, and most of all my wife Joanne, who, like, she and I were both coming together to really make this happen, and my kids for tolerating and buying in on this and believing that mom and dad have some idea what we're doing
Well, you're creating
when
like
sometimes we may not, right?
and they'll tell you when you don't know what you're doing. All right, Dr. Good, President and CEO of Virginia Spine Institute. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura.